There are 168 hours in every week. Most of us only use one to know God, find freedom, discover our purpose, and make a difference. But this week in the 167, we're going to be talking about all the crazy generosity that happened during the time of COVID and in our church over the last 2 years. And then we're going to check in and take a look at Job and thinking differently. Welcome to the 167. Hey, welcome back to the 167. We are back here with Pastor Rick George of New Life Community Church.
Man, it seems like we just did this.
We did.
Yeah, like a week ago?
A week ago.
Yeah, awesome.
But hey, I don't know if it's been a week since you guys been listening, but we are here. I'm Pastor Lucas, the discipleship pastor. With me as always is this empty chair.
Yes.
So this past week, we did something really exciting. We did a game changer update in service. We were telling people where we're at with our generosity initiative. So help me out here. So 2 years ago, we started a generosity initiative, and our goal was to increase our impact on the community and really to raise, I think the goal was $4.5 million.
Roughly, yep.
Yeah, so our goal was basically, we have a lot of things in mind. We want to do new projects like this one. We want to do new projects like a new building. We want to increase our generosity in the community to our missions partners. And so we kind of calculated up the number that it's not like, well, this is a separate fund and this is a separate fund, but this is what it would take if we just said, this is our operating budget and here we go. So this Sunday, I was really excited to hear the kind of some of the results of where we are 2 years from that date.
Yeah, so we had a great 2 years, overall. Right in the middle of that 2 year period was about a 10-month period where COVID, the coronavirus effect was, pretty impactful for us. We had quarantines, we had shutdowns, we had periods when we couldn't meet in person. And so it did kind of set us back a little bit, like it did everybody. We're not unique in that. So churches around the country were struggling, families were struggling, trying to, regroup and to refocus and say, what do we really need to do? And as a church, man, we did an incredible job of, refocusing, launching some brand new things, which really goes hand in hand with the initiative to begin with. So we were able to launch a much better version of our online presence. So we were offering, full live music, the whole experience because of generosity. We had the funds to do that. And it's not cheap. It takes some money to buy cameras and, streaming equipment and subscriptions and all of those things, not to mention the man hours and the additional time. And everybody jumped in and made that happen. So that was just a reflection of, a generosity initiative that we had already put into place a few months prior. We weren't planning on that, but it was one of the ways it was very evident.
Well, and those memories, like when you're talking about that, it seems like so far away, but it was not that long ago. Yeah. And I remember us coming in and watching just the internet explode with churches going, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to reach our people. And like you said, I feel like God had been preparing us for that moment where it's like we had already prepped this generosity initiative. We had already prepped where we were talking about using tools like Right Now Media. We were already talking about going online with streaming. Right. We just, we didn't have that swift kick in the butt to go, we got to get this online now. It was like, someday we will do this. And so we kind of had it in the back pipeline, and we were like, right now we're using our finances for other things. And it was like, well, nobody's coming to church. We can use our finances for this. Let's get it done and get it jump started. But I also remember being in those months and I was asking you questions like, did we not meet our budget this month? And you were like, no, we did. Like, I remember there was one month where you literally came in my office and said, we're going to be short this month. And then the next day, somebody, I can't remember if it was like sold a piece of property or gave a large donation. And then we were like $2,000 over our budget for the month.
Yeah. So, I mean, God has been very gracious to us. His blessing on us is incredible. But so has the generosity of God's people, just being obedient to do what God asked them to do. And so, yeah, there are so many things that we've been able to do. This podcast being one of them.
Right.
Like, because of the generosity of our people, we were able to then fulfill one of our objective, which was to radically impact our culture, be aggressive in that in whatever ways we could. So that means, face-to-face conversations, and sometimes it means conversations over the internet or, through a podcast and on their phone. And we didn't have the equipment, we didn't have the ability to do that. But because of generosity, we were able to fulfill that vision to impact our community in a way that's relevant to them. And a podcast is one of those ways. It's not the only way, but it is a way.
So using this tool, because I think this is the thing, you guys listening and watching online, you guys are the ones that make this happen. So I thought it'd be fun to celebrate the people that have been involved in this generosity initiative and celebrate what God's done, but using our listeners as a vessel for that in their generosity. So I thought we'd kind of play like a great game because around the office we like to one up each other. It's like you tell a story, I tell a story. So I thought we just trade off. You tell a story, I tell a story about a game changer thing that happened during this time, during this last 2 years that you were like, man, this was incredible. So do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second. I'll give you the
liberty
going
I'll give
first.
a warm up.
All right, go. Because I want to one up you first.
Oh. All right. So where do I want to start? Okay. So when COVID happened, one of the things that we did was we put out a call on Facebook and asked members of our congregation to partner up with senior citizens in our congregation to check on them, make sure they had supplies, and buy groceries. We had an overwhelming response, so much that we had more people than we had senior citizens in our church. And so we actually had more people than need in our church. And I thought that was just an incredible thing and a testament to our church that people were like, no, 100%, I will go to the store. I will risk whatever they thought they were risking to help our senior citizens to make sure that they are safe.
Man, that's hard to one up. That's it. That is incredible that we had so many people saying, I want to jump in. I want to help. How can we do it? Even in the midst of a pandemic when they didn't know what their salary was going to be and how they were going to be affected. It didn't matter. I'll go buy the groceries. I'll sacrifice. That's awesome. Fast forward towards the end of that, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a situation where there was a single mom or this lady had started coming to our church, was having a hard time getting to church, had lost transportation, just struggling in a lot of different areas of life. Some people found out about that, and through a couple of phone calls, they show up and like, hey, we have transportation. Here's a van that will work perfect for this mom and her kids. Here's the title. Here's the keys. Give it to her. We're like, okay, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
So just on the spot then, we were able to do a Facebook Live, just throw it out there. We were winging it. Like, it was an incredible experience. But just the generosity of someone who heard about a need and said, we can fix that. Here's a van. Boom. Did that one up you? Maybe not, but it's a pretty cool story.
I know. It's a good one.
All right, now one up me.
All right. That's good. You got one car, I'll do two.
All right.
All right. So next, which is our 18 to 25-year-olds ministry, one of our life groups there, and this is, I'm going to tell a couple of these stories because we actually have growth in our 18 to 25-year-old ministry that it is children now ministering to their parents. Like, it's just awesome to see through different things. But one of those things was we have a student in the 18, or actually two students in the 18 to 25-year-olds. Their parents have undergone some hard times. Mom has cancer, has been fighting that. And so they have just been in kind of, financial hardship. And so they went on, started a GoFundMe, and they raised money for not just one, but two cars. And there was a network of people, their life group leader, he called some people that he knew that they were able to get cars at auction, fix them up, and be able to present these cars to the family and say, hey, listen, this is just, us to you saying, we love you. You've had a hard year. Like, we want to bless you in that.
Wow.
So that's one. I give you two.
Wow. You took one car and turned it into two.
It's like Jesus. I just broke that car in half and was like, and then we had 12 baskets of cars left.
All right. So just recently, then, we had a situation where there's a guy in our community that his only mode of transportation is a bicycle. Mm-hmm. And he came to the church and had an issue with his bike, and it needed repaired. And so we sent word out, and there was a couple of young men in their early 20s that came up and thought they could fix the bike, and so they tinkered with it and worked on it and discovered that it just wasn't going to happen. And instead of just giving up and saying, it's a bike, we can't fix it, one of them decided, I have a really nice bike, and I want to give that to him. So he went home, got his bike, brought it back to the church, and said, here, just give it to him so he can have transportation. It's not two cars, but it is a great sacrifice, and it's a great testimony of generosity from a young person who says, I don't have a lot. I can't give you a car. I can't buy you a house. I can't give you thousands of dollars. But what I have is a bicycle that's a really nice bicycle, and I want to give that to you. That was pretty incredible.
I love that story. Like I said, and that's, like I said, I was there and you saw the just look on his face where I was just like, it's okay, you did your best. He's like, no, I have a bike at home. I was like, yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
It was awesome. Let's see. Oh, man, what am I going to do to one-up that? I want to talk about our missions partners. And you shared this on Sunday that we've given, you're going to have to help me out with this number. It's like over $400,000.
So we gave $401,200 for outreach and missions projects, both locally and overseas.
Yes, because we as a church tithe. Whatever we take in, we cut 10% off of it, and we give it to foreign missions, we give it to local partners. And a lot of people in our congregation, don't even know that we give that because we just don't. We don't flaunt it. We don't, do whatever. It's kind of it's like our tithe. We just put it in the offering plate and go. But we have so many, and some of our partners, are partners in countries where it's illegal for them to be, Christ followers, and so we kind of keep it on the down low. But man, what an incredible impact! Over $400,000 that we've given to foreign missions and local missions in just 2 years.
Yeah. And that's again a testament to the generosity of our church family. But in addition to the $401,000 that we gave,
here comes the one up
to missions, then above and beyond that is when we gave the over $72,000 locally. This is above and beyond the $400,000, but just people who show up at our door saying, "I need food, I need gas money, I need my utilities paid. They're going to shut off my water, my heat. I'm going to get kicked out of my apartment." And so they fill out an application. Then we have our deacons who are part of our benevolence team, and they meet with them and hear their story. And then they say, here's what we can do. And 113 families were impacted with just over $72,000.
That's crazy.
So that's just being generous. And we're able to be generous because our church family is generous.
Well, and that's on top of what we also do in missions where we collect. Like right now, we're doing mountains of food.
Exactly.
We do lunches for the working poor. We do what we collected blankets over Christmas for the homeless. We did the Star Snack program where we partner with local schools and bring them
if
snacks.
You could put dollar figures to the whole thing, it's easily another $100,000 of just supplies and things that we give away.
Shiloh House.
Yeah, that kind of go under the radar, but it's just part of helping people, just loving them and serving them and giving things that are practical to them, and we don't keep a dollar figure on that.
Well, and that's what's so important, I think, about this is that, a lot of people are like, what about the building? What about the building? What about the... And it's like, that is a byproduct of, it's a tool that allows us to do ministry.
Right.
Other than dollar amount, it's basically going, hey, we need money to buy cameras to do a stream, or hey, we need a bigger building because now that we do the stream, it's harder for us to allow community groups to use the gym because there's so much equipment. There's like, we want to be good stewards of, we don't want to buy a camera and have it broken the second day and have to buy another one. So it's like, we want more space to be able to affect our community. And so that's a byproduct, but like these stories. So I get you another one. So we've been talking money. I'm going to talk Holy Spirit for a second. Okay. So again, one of our things is that we really expanded our 18 to 25 year olds ministry. And again, that was a add-on in our budget. Like we didn't have that ministry. We added it on 18 to 25 year olds. And it's now 3 life groups. We're about ready to move to 4. We're going to intake some seniors. And so we had a young woman who came to our groups and just had a radical encounter with Jesus. And then she ended up going back and ministering to her family and kind of saying, hey, you need this too. And so brought in her family. We prayed for them. They in turn, like they just called me the other day and said like, man, like we thought that we knew what was going on. Like we have just been experiencing Jesus in a whole new way. It's this incredible awakening for us. And it's, something that's really impacted their family life. And it was because their student was then ministering to them. Yeah. So like we've had like not just financial stories, but this kind of generosity of time and spirit to say like, hey, these are impact stories that we're having in our own church, in the community, in a demographic that is largely unchurched.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that is what most people kind of know, but you really don't think about it, is every new ministry opportunity that comes up in a church costs some money. It might not be a lot of money, but resources have to be available to fund certain things. And those resources become available because of people's faithfulness, their obedience, and their generosity, right? And so, we're able to have this ministry and expand the ministry, invest some dollars into it, and then the end result is part of the result is we have, someone in the ministry changing the life of someone outside of the ministry, and it's all kind of tied together. That's pretty cool. So another form of generosity in regards to that is just people being generous, not just with finances, but generous with their time. And we have seen a number of people who have said, I have something that I can give, which is my time. And so we've seen new members onto our worship team, some musicians, some singers. We've seen an increased number of tech workers back in the sound booth. We have some new folks that are going through the turbo training to be life group leaders. All of those things take time out of our already busy schedule, but they're willing to do that because they want to be generous, not just with their money, but with their time also. So this generosity thing, yes, it was a 2-year focus of generosity, but it's a lifetime of living that out to say, I want to be generous with my life, every part of it. And as a whole, our family here at New Life has been doing a really good job. We have a long ways to go, but we're making a lot of headway.
Yeah, more stories to come. Like I said, we're going to keep trying to share 7-minute stories with people and their generosity, their game changer moments. Yeah. And so stay tuned for that in the podcast. And I just, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many more things that I can think about that we'll be sharing through social media and different things like that. Be here on Sunday morning. Go listen to this week's message so that you can see some more of those stats, and just know that every one of those numbers is about a person that we are ministering to, that we are trying to give them a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, save them from the fires of hell, and give them this abundant life of generosity.
Absolutely.
Hey, welcome back to Think Differently here in the podcast. And I'll tell you what, we're going to dive into Job today. We're in a third session kind of in the series. And today we're really going to talk about Job's argument about why he shouldn't be going through what he's going through. So far in our story, we have are taking a look at the book of Job, which is written sort of like a Shakespearean play, but in Hebrew. And I think that it's actually a true story that is told in this way. But we're going to talk about Job's argument about why he thinks that he is suffering. Because what we're really talking about and asking is, does the book of Job answer the question, is God just and is he fair? Okay? Because that's what people want to know. Whenever they reference Job, it's usually when we as Christians are enduring something that it's uncomfortable, it's could be viewed as oppression or spiritual oppression, and it's suffering, and we say, why would God allow suffering in this world? Why would a good God allow that? And so usually the conclusions that we come to are based upon the argument of, if I am good and wise, I should only get good things. And if I am bad or make unwise decisions, then I get bad things. And so Job's going to make his case, and he's making his case to his friends, because what happens here for the bulk of the book is that one of the three friends will speak to Job and say, here's why I think that why you're going through what you're going through. And Job will rebut his friends and say, no, that's not it. And here's essentially Job one at a time. All three friends go through that, and Job rebuts them 1, 2, 3, right in a row. And so here's the essence of Job's argument, because what they're trying to prove to Job is that he deserves this somehow, that this somehow is karma for Job. That it's because Job has a secret sin, or maybe it's because God doesn't really see Job, or maybe, God's negligent. And so Job's argument for this is that something mysterious has to be going on, and he doesn't know why, but it has to be God's fault. So, and that's a dangerous argument. But his argument, first of all, was, I am righteous. And we think, man, what arrogance, because that's what his friends tell him. That's so arrogant for you to say he's righteous. But what's interesting is at the beginning of this story, God says that he's righteous. God tells him, he says, look at my servant Job. None is more righteous than him. So apparently Job is a good person. He's someone who, if he sins, he offers the right sacrifices, or he does the right things to achieve repentance. And God himself says that Job is righteous. And so Job's conclusion there is, if I am righteous, therefore my suffering is not divine punishment. It cannot be that God is angry with me, and so it's not divine punishment, which essentially is true in this story. And that's because we know the behind the scenes. But Job doesn't know that yet. So it's not divine punishment. But people struggle with this question of, if God allows it, does he will it? And this is the kind of the question that Job is answering, is if I am suffering, is it the will of God that I suffer? Is it some divine punishment that I have earned or achieved? And really, the New Testament covers this in a number of places, where there's like 14 different places where it talks about why you might, have some suffering that happens in your life. They call it trials, they call it temptations, they call it things that refine your faith. And mostly it is based around your faith. A lot of people will start to use these arguments to say, well, the reason I stub my toe is because God's mad at me. And it's like, that's not true. It's God directs those things when it comes to your faith, if there's an area that you need to grow in your faith. And so we can cover that in another part. But really, the argument is kind of saying, if we are allowed to be forgiven by God, if the accuser Satan is standing in heaven and saying, hey, listen, I think that this person is guilty, and Jesus says, yeah, they are guilty, but I've died for their sins. Don't worry about it. I've paid that cost. Does God still hold it a grudge and feel like he has to punish us here on earth, even though he's guaranteed us eternal life in heaven? And so the conclusion is that it goes back to that flawed argument of, if I am good, I get good things. And if I'm bad, I get bad things, that God is willfully and intentionally punishing me. And Job's saying, I don't think that he's willfully and intentionally punished me, because I'm righteous. And each one of us is righteous as well, because we're covered in the blood of Christ. So the conclusion of that is that God doesn't run the world according to justice and fairness. Because if we are deemed righteous by Christ, and God was a just God and God was a fair God, then we would be protected in this bubble, right? Like, God would never allow bad things to happen to us. And it wouldn't even be from our own do-gooding or our own bad things. It would be because we're counted righteous with God. And I always joke that a lot of Christians, they believe in prayer like they believe in witchcraft, which is they think that if they can get the spell right, that God has to do whatever they ask. And that's just not true. And then likewise, this is kind of the equivalent of Christians believing in karma. Karma is a concept that comes from Eastern religions that basically says, if I do good things, the universe rewards me with good things. I do nice things, I get nice things. That's fair, right? Like, we would say, well, that's fair. It seems like fairness to us. But what's interesting in that is it's based on the fact that no matter what, my ratio of goodness stays in the positive. Even if I'm a terrible person, everybody thinks that they're a good person. And then if something bad happens to us, we go, well, surely I couldn't have done something bad, right? Because I'm using my own judgment about what is fair and just and good. And that's why we end up in this confused state about God. This is never the message of the Bible. It's always about undeserved grace. So Job is righteous, and he makes the case that he is righteous. And we are made righteous by Jesus Christ. So we're in kind of that same camp. And yet we still face temptations, trials, and sufferings. And so if we are not guaranteed these blessings because we do right things, then why do it, right? Like that's the case that the accuser is making. If God isn't fair, then he's mean. And this is where Job gets into dangerous territory, because he's kind of dancing on that edge where he's saying, this isn't my fault, and I don't think that God is punishing me because it's not my fault. I'm righteous. So that either makes God unfair or it makes him negligent. And so this is the bet that the accuser has made, that if God stops blessing Job, that he'll walk away from God. And he hasn't walked away from God, because in fact, he's dug in his heels and demanded an answer as to why karma is not working out his way. And so Job demands an answer of God, and he says, why are you not doing what I think is fair? And we're actually going to find out that God shows up and answers that question, but Job's not going to like the answer. So next week, we're going to talk about the three friends and what their arguments are, but stay tuned to that. If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church, and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.